What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be giving you my spoiler-free review for Ballerina from the world of John Wick, or it's titled From the World of John Wick Ballerina, which is a ridiculous title if we're being honest. Let's just call it Ballerina. That's a much better title for the movie. This is of course a John Wick spin-off that takes place in between John Wick Chapter 3 and John Wick Chapter 4. And let's just get right into it. We're going to go through the positives, the negatives, and then give the movie a rating out of 10. Starting off with the positives, this film has amazing action and choreography. It is some of the best I've seen of this year, and it is on par with the best of the John Wick franchise. I'm definitely happy that they did not cut any corners here just because it's not a traditional John Wick film. They still made sure the action was as high octane and as intense and as just absolutely bizarre as the John Wick films, while still attempting to keep the action scenes somewhat grounded. Now, of course, they're not fully grounded. They do get a bit crazy here or there, but in general, they're not like too over the top. The characters do still move and fight in a way that real people could technically fight, even if some of the moments are a bit too much. Like, you're just thinking to yourself, there's no way someone would actually survive that in real life, but these characters sometimes do. But they still manage to make it work with the amazing choreography. Like, it's really, really well done. I really don't notice any moments where the choreography felt a little flat or felt off. It all looks great, and it's all so much fun to watch. Ana de Armas fits very well into this franchise. She is playing a character named Eve, and yeah, she's definitely an actress who can definitely hold her own in the star of a film. I can't think of many other films that I've seen her in where she was like the main lead, but she was incredible in this and definitely proved herself as being someone who can lead an action film. This movie definitely is a worthy John Wick spin-off. I will say it fits very nicely into the franchise, and it actually does add a lot of world building and context to some other parts of the universe, especially with the Roma organization that she is a part of. Of course, that's where all the ballerinas are, and I love all the context they added to that, because that part of the John Wick movies was always just kind of like in a couple scenes here or there. I never really felt like it was at the forefront, but getting context to those different sections of the universe is pretty cool. I mean, of course, they did have that Continental TV series as well. I heard it wasn't very good, but I am glad that they were able to focus on the Roma in this movie, and they even focused on a completely different group that I don't think we've heard of before in the John Wick franchise, and that was the group that has the villains of this film. And I actually think the villains were pretty interesting. I don't think any individual villainous character was that interesting, but I do think the overall villain organization was quite interesting. Their philosophy and their way of life and how they do things, and I do think it kind of worked well with the story of Eve and was a nice parallel to her life. Of course, John Wick himself does appear in the film, and he is actually well used, I would say. He's not in a ton of it, but when he does show up, he is incredible and has a fantastic action scene. Actually, I guess a couple fantastic action scenes, and he does have some pretty interesting conversations to have with Eve in this movie. I don't know if we're ever going to see John Wick again after this. I think they were already talking about doing a 5th movie, which I don't really know how that's going to work, of course, after seeing John Wick Chapter 4. But if this does end up being the last we ever see of him, then honestly, I'm totally fine with that. I think he was really, really great to watch in this movie, and his role made sense as well. It wasn't like they just kind of threw him in there just for fun. It made so much sense why he was there. It worked perfectly for the character and for the type of character that he is. The movie itself looks fantastic. Visually, it is gorgeous. There is some great cinematography with it, and I mean, most of the set pieces look amazing as well. There's of course a nightclub sequence. I mean, there always has to be a nightclub sequence in these movies, and this nightclub looked incredible. Just so much color to the movie. And of course, just like every other John Wick movie, the soundtrack is fantastic. There's so many amazing pieces of music, and especially the main theme. It's so good because it's kind of a remix of John Wick's theme, but it's now Eve's theme. It's like a little like remix of it, and I like how they're trying to parallel both of these characters because they do have a lot of similarities. I mean, both of these characters are so built upon revenge. That is their story. That is Eve's story, and this movie is basically a revenge film, and showing that parallel between them within even just their main theme is pretty cool. But now let's get to the negatives, because this is definitely not a flawless film. There are a couple of significant issues I have with it. My first issue, that honestly was probably my biggest issue with the movie, and it bothers me so much, and it probably shouldn't, and maybe I have to rewatch it to really get a better look at things, but there was a huge issue where they wouldn't give Eve, which is of course Ana de Armas' character, enough wounds on her face, like visible wounds, even after she's been in an insane amount of, action sequences, hand-to-hand combat where she was getting punched in the face, kicked in the face, thrown through glass, thrown into the wall, just all sorts of things happening to her. Yet somehow she has like nothing on her face. Her face is clear. There's zero blood, there's zero cuts, there's nothing. Now at a certain point in the movie, they finally give her like one streak of blood up here, and that's about it. And then maybe they gave her like one other little thing later on, but majority of the film, she's clean. There's a sequence, and it's a great sequence, by the way, I'm not saying this ruins it, but she's in a dress and a lot of her skin is showing, and she gets thrown into like a glass, like a whole thing of glass at one point, and like it shatters, and she's like on top of glass, and she gets up, zero cuts, zero blood. What? Like, what? Is she Superman? I don't understand. Like, John Wick has that problem in a different way, where I mentioned before, he just kind of takes everything and somehow gets up and he's fine. That's not the issue here, though. The issue isn't that she's getting up from these things. I think obviously the point of these characters is that they're supposed to be badasses, right? Of course, they're supposed to be scary. They're supposed to be really strong, and it's terrifying to see. That's fine, but you have to show some visible wounds when she clearly gets wounded. You know what I mean? Like, if you want to make her get up regardless of these wounds and be a badass, and like, that's fine. I actually love that. I think that works perfectly fine for this movie. But like, show the wounds. I don't know if it was like a thing where they didn't have enough people in the makeup department, so they couldn't really work on fixing that, or if they just didn't want to have Armas's face all messed up in this movie because they wanted to show it as much as possible. I don't really know, but I just felt like it kind of took me out of the moment sometimes, because I'm like, dude, she was just in this insane fight sequence and she's coming out just looking like Armas. Like, what's going on here? Like, why isn't she wounded? Well, where's the wounds? Again, later in the film, they give her a couple here and there, but I still think to myself, she should have so much more. She should be looking like Rocky Balboa after a fight scene. Like, I don't understand why she doesn't. Okay, maybe not that bad. She's not getting like, pounded in the face or anything like that, but there should be some cuts and bruises here and there, and there just never really is in a significant manner, except for, like I said, towards the end of the movie, where they give her like a streak of blood, and that's about it. It's not enough. I feel like it took me out of the moment a little bit too much. It's not to say she never gets wounded at all. There is a scene where she's even like picking glass out of her shoulder, but that's, like I said, there's not enough of that, especially within the scenes themselves. Like, sometimes after the fact, they'll show you, oh, she actually did get wounded there, but like during the fight scene, they don't ever update her face to show that, oh my god, she's actually been wounded significantly. And I think that adds more stakes to the fight when it does show that she's been wounded. So I don't know. I don't really get why they didn't do that. It's just kind of irked me a bit. Another negative is not really like a negative necessarily. It's just kind of a thing where I was a little disappointed by. Norman Reedus is in this movie. He plays a character named Daniel, and I was very excited for him. And he is pretty good in this movie. He's got a really cool action sequence that I really enjoyed. He's just not in enough of the movie. That was something I was a little disappointed by. But to be honest, that's not really a negative. I mean, they write a character to play a specific role, and then they have, they cast the actor to play the character. They don't need to have the character appear more than the story requires. So I'm not really using that as like a big negative. It's just one of those things that I kind of wish we had more of him. And my last negative is that there is a few subplots that are significantly underdeveloped and just kind of thrown in there. There's two characters in particular. There's one woman and there's one little girl. And I do not want to say any specifics about these characters because it will probably spoil who these characters are and what the relation is to other people. And so I'm just not going to even mention who they are, but these characters are just significantly underdeveloped, and they're just kind of thrown in there to have an important role, and then they end up not really having an important role, like not in a significant manner. And I feel like they could have actually found more time to develop these characters and give them a bigger part to play in the film, but they just didn't. And so I thought that was a little odd. It felt weird, like writing wise. And I think the movie could have used a little bit more story depth. A lot of it was action, and that was great. I mean, it was non-stop action start to finish, and it was pretty cool, but I could have used some more story, and I think these characters could have been that, but they didn't really go that far. So overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was definitely a worthy John Wick film, but it's not perfect. I'm going to give it an 8.2 out of 10. It's definitely a solid film that you should definitely go see. Honestly, I don't think it's like up there as one of my favorite John Wick movies, but even if it's like my least favorite John Wick movie, it still is an incredible film that is definitely worthy of watching. So hopefully you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. I will see you on my next one. Peace out.